And we're live. So today, I'll get straight to the point. There is a referendum push by Ekuru Aukot. I hope that's the right pronunciation. He leads a party known as Thirdway Alliance, and what they want to do is they want to change the constitution a bit. To do that, he needs to get 1 million signatures so that he can push for a referendum that would force the legal mechanisms to push for a referendum. Anyway, so the first question we'd ask is, how did you get here? How did we have this need for a referendum? How did it come about? So anyway, I wanted to give a brief history of how we came to this constitution that we currently have, that we now want to change. We started with the Bomas draft in 2004. So that was Yashpal Guy. It was there was a lot of momentum behind it. People went to Bomas, different groups, and they discussed it for days and days and days, and they came up with the Bomas draft. That was in 2005. And then there's somebody called Wako. He was the Attorney General at that time. It was under the Kibaki regime because it was 2005. And what the Bomas draft did is that it gave powers to the Prime Minister. It took some powers from the President and gave them to the Prime Minister. So the President would be kind of like a bit ceremonial. So the powers that be did not want that. So Wako went to Kilifi with his group of friends, and they did what they call the Wako draft, or we can call it the Kilifi draft. So that was in 2005. And after that, we went for a constitution, right, a referendum. And guess what? Kenyans rejected it. 58% of the voters rejected it. And here's the funny part. 93.2% of the people in central Kenya approved of it. So that will give you an idea of how Kenyans vote, and especially when it comes to matters as important as the constitution. Now, when you move from that, I also need to point out one fact. Raila was the Minister of Roads, Public Works and Housing from January 2003 to November 2005. So as soon as the referendum ended and Kibaki had lost, then Raila got fired. Raila again with his group of friends. So I just wanted to point that out as I move on. Then after that, we had the harmonized draft, where a committee of experts came together and they tried to look at the Bomas draft, they look at the Kilifi draft, and they harmonized it. And that's how we have the harmonized draft. And they released it on November 2009. Guess who was a member of this committee of experts? Ekuru Aukot. He was a member of this committee of experts. And here are some of the proposals that they had at that time in November 2009. An upper house, that's the Senate, and the Senate will have a total number of 113 members. So Ekuru and the other expert proposed 132 members of the Senate, right? Again, they proposed that, we do away with the provinces, we call them regions. And they also proposed that we have 70 counties, each headed by executives. So they didn't propose 47 counties, they proposed 70 counties, right? And they proposed 113 senators, right? So that's part of what Ekuru and others proposed during the harmonized draft. So then it went to Parliament, and then Parliament revised it a bit. They wanted to put some amendments to it, 150 amendments, but they failed, right? Because the momentum was that the country we wanted a constitution, so there's no going, the amendments would have derailed that, so they failed. So we went for a referendum on August 4th, 2010. 67% of Kenyans approved of that constitution, right? Another funny thing, Rift Valley, 59.4% of the people in Rift Valley voted against it. Now, Rift Valley is a multi-ethnic area. I think we all know that the most of the people who voted against it would have been the Kalenjin, similarly to the way most of the people who voted for the constitution in 2005 would have been the Kikuyu. So that gives you an idea of how we vote based on constitutions. Hi Dibaj. So I wanted to give these examples because in the referendum in 2005 would have given Raila some additional powers, because now he was in the best position to become prime minister. So it would have given him good powers, because now it would have taken from the president to him. And he was the Minister of Road and Works. He was in government at that time. Again, the Kikuyu did not want that, so they voted against it. And then in the referendum, the 2000 Kilifi, what Ruto said was that he was taking a census of his people, and he took a census, and that's what happened. Anyway, I'll add on that as we go. So I wanted to give you an example. Like the committee of experts, Ekuru was talking about his time as the committee of experts. He says that's one of the most challenging periods of his life. Really, really challenging. This is what he said. This is an exact quote. Politicians from every corner of the country saw the review as a shopping basket to throw in their self-interest. So everybody was trying to throw in their self-interest. Those who wanted this, and we had this gave rise, this throwing of interest into the basket gave rise to the contentious issues. And he uses this word, the so-called contentious issues. And he continues, we had the unenviable task of sorting out excess baggage and coming up with a draft acceptable to the majority of Kenyans. So he had problems drafting the harmonized draft, and there were contentious issues, and he called them so-called contentious issues. Now, what were these issues on? These issues were on abortion. The other one was on international courts, like giving Kenyans jurisdiction over, like the constitution we have. Parliament does not have to ratify an international treaty for it to become law. So people thought that was a bit dangerous. So those were some of the contentious issues. I take exception to his tone, because he says so-called contentious issues. Religion is very, very important, as is sovereignty. And these contentious issues, they touched on that. And they were they were so contentious that a large portion of the country around, this is 33% did not vote for it, right? They are so contentious to that extent. So again, I believe that this is a bit of arrogance on his part, which is okay. Arrogance does not, you don't vote on issues because of arrogance. So I'll just move on that. And then just the other day, on Tuesday, March 6, 2018, part of the Raila team, they want us to return to the Bomas draft. They want a power sharing formula based on the Bomas draft. So when you look at these politicians, what they do is that we start off from this point, right, and we move on as interest, like Ekuru is saying. People develop arguments based on interest, right? And after their interests are not served, they want to go back to the interests. Because now you'd ask, if the Bomas draft was so good, right? Then why did we push for this other one, the proposed constitution on February 2018? Why could we just stuck with the Bomas and say let's bring it back? Because the political dynamics had changed. And again, if Ekuru felt that we have too much representation, then why did he suggest an increase in representation, right? Why did only the Kikuyu vote for the referendum in 2005? Why was it only the Kalenjin who voted against the referendum in 2010? And the argument that I have is that people do not vote on constitutions based on the facts. They vote on constitutions based on their political standing. Like the 2005, it was a referendum on Kibaki. 2010 was a preparation for Raila's presidency in 2013. That is my opinion. But anyway, Ekuru, I also believe that this could jumpstart his career. Perhaps he has a good hand in place. This is good in place, but I think it's a way of jumpstarting his career, because he's moving back on his position. At the same time, a man has a right to change his mind, and it is good. So if he has found some new enlightenment, then it's still okay. We need to check the arguments, not the person making the arguments. So that's what I'll be doing. So he started the Punguza Mizigo initiative, right? It had how many signatures? It had 600k signatures by October, right? 10, 2018. Right now it has 670 signatures. So it's really, really close to 1 million. And when you get to that, then things become interesting now. Because I think even the politicians, they're just waiting to see, the big ones, the big politicians, they're just waiting to see how it will go. And then they'll make their stand known. So let's go through the his proposals, right? Like, what is he proposing? So one of the proposals, I've divided these proposals into excellent points, okay points, and then utopian points, right? So there are ones that I like a lot. There are others that I'm okay with them. There are others that I feel that are not in line with the Kenyan political dynamics. So that's how I've divided them. So I'll start with the reducing the cost of running parliament from 36.8 billion to around Kenya shillings 5 billion per year. This is the cost of running parliament. So how would you reduce that cost? Again, one of the ways of reducing cost in business and in government is by reducing the number of people you're paying wages to. You're paying wages, right? And so he proposes this. Reduce the number of representatives from 416 to 147. That's a good idea. I believe that's a very, very good idea. So how does he propose to do that? He wants the 47 counties to become constituencies, right? So when they become constituencies, then you'd have 47, right? You'd have 47, I think, MPs from each one of them, and then 47 senators from each one of them. That would be 94. And then 94, yeah, it will come to that figure. It will come to 147. So he has it's a good plan to get to that 147 figure. And doing so would reduce the wage bill, as he says, by 31.8 billion. So there are a couple of, and he wants to abolish nominations in the county assemblies and the Senate, right? Which I believe is a good idea. I do not know why these nominations exist. I actually personally would go further and abolish them in the National Assembly. I would go further. So anyway, a number of people have argued against this. I'd mentioned the most prominent, I think, person, David Ndii, who says that the constitution is not to blame for the current situation in Kenya, right? And he actually has sort of like figures to back up his arguments. Like he says that Britain has 2.5 times more representative per person than Kenya has, right? So Britain has more representatives per person than we have, and the society works, right? It works. Again, so another factor that Ndii does not take into account is how much each of them is paid based on the GDP. And again, so you can have so many people, right, representative of a given country, right, but they're paid less per person, per representative. So overall, their cost might be lower than us who have a lower number of people. Anyway, I'll get to that later. Still, this argument does not hold water. You get, not because they do that, then we should do that. So it's really not an argument that you can advance to counter whatever Ekuru is trying. And also, it doesn't matter the savings that you make. As long as you can make savings, then it doesn't really matter, right? Like Ndii continues arguing. He says that the budget alone for the president is 8.9 billion. It was 5.4 billion. So what he's trying to say is that what he's trying to say is that the problem is elsewhere. It's in the presidency and the cabinet secretaries. That's where the money is going to, and that's where they're stealing, right? Which is again is a good argument, but it doesn't hold out at the end of it, because even if you can make savings of 20 bob, it's still good. So let's make those savings, right? And I wanted to give an example, like 82,000 Kenyans owe HELB, the Higher Education Loans Board, 8.2 billion, right? If Ekuru's proposal goes through, if we save 31.8 billion, then already we can just take away all those the debt that people owe others, right? That people owe HELB, that 8.2 billion. So I'm really for that idea. Now, just to continue, he wants to use the ward as the primary unit of development, right? Replacing CDF, which I think is a very good idea, because government should represent the least person possible, even if the least people possible are the family, that's the social unit, and the individual. That's the purpose of government. It should represent those people, right? So if Ekuru wants to bring it further, to take it from the constituency to the ward level, right, that's a very good idea. I usually like the states because in some places people can hire their own sheriff. They can vote for their own sheriff. It's so devolved that even you can, security is devolved to the least possible constituency, right? In this case, it would be the ward, and I believe that that's a very, very good idea, because then people have choices over what they want. It's decentralization at its best. So I support that. And then he wants every Kenyan at the age of 18 should be deemed as a registered voter. I don't see how people, if you're already 18, then you need a voter's card or you need to go and register. You are 18. It should be there in the role. And one of the reasons why people brought these rules was so that they could lock people out of the system, so that they can steal, right? Because you don't really need it. The ID should be sufficient. You don't have to go around registering, right? So as long as you have attained 18 and you have an ID, you should be deemed as a registered voter. Now the only check after that is to make sure that you don't vote twice. But that should be done. We don't have a registration exercise today, registration exercise tomorrow. That's how they steal. And this system was brought in so that people can steal. Another way of viewing it is that what happens with the education system in Kenya is that the idea is to lock people out of the economic system, right? A certain people do not move past primary school. A certain people do not move past secondary school. A certain number of people do not move past university. So the idea is to keep locking out people so that you have whatever. In this case, in education, you'd say the best. But in this case, it's to have your own people who can vote in the person that you want and to lock the other people out. So I think that's a very good idea. And then he wants to end gender inequality and ensure that Kenyans elect one man, one woman from each of the 47 counties, right? So one man, one woman from each of the 7 counties. That's 2 people, right? So I think that's a very, very good idea. And I wanted to give an examples of how this ideas came about. Examples of how these ideas work. Rome was a republic. Rome was a kingdom. It started out as a kingdom, right? Romanus and his brother, they fought. Romanus won. It became a kingdom for some time. But a certain king rose up and he was so bad, so evil that the people now decided to have a republic, right? And they hated the idea of a king so much because of what this king did, that they decided that they will never concentrate power in one person. Never. So what did they do? They had what they call proconsuls, such that at any given time there are 2 people who hold power in Rome, in the same way that there could be 2 presidents, right, holding power in Rome, right? So this idea stayed for a while, for I think around 700 years, until Julius Caesar came about. And that's when the republic came to an end and the empire started. Again, we look at the US. The US has a system. Every state has a senator, and every state has 2 senators, not 1, 2 senators, so that they can balance the power. That power does not move into one direction and only one person has power. I'll touch on the Senate a bit later. So, okay, policies that really have no arguments against. Yeah, like increasing against or for, like increasing county revenues share from 35% to 15% to 35%. That's a good idea, because now you're devolving resources. Again, that would make the devolution to the ward level work. People would have power and money at the ward level. They can decide on actual projects within their area, and then you wouldn't have bridges built for 100 million, right? Because they can't lie that much. But when a governor comes and he lies, they just lie. But at what level those lies, they can't happen really. Okay, let me just move on a bit faster. He wants to elevate the Senate to an upper house with veto powers, which I think is a very good idea. But I think to have that idea work, you really need to understand what the functions of the Senate are and what the functions of the Parliament are, because the functions should determine the elevation of power, not just the idea of having a Senate with elevated power. You get the function should determine the power. And I want to give an example of, again, Rome. I love Rome. When you look at the UN, I don't know, let me call it a logo or something. you'd see wheat and then the words UN in the middle. So Rome used to have, I think the UN borrowed it from Rome, and it used to have that like wheat surrounded by the words SPQR, and SPQR meant the Senate and the people of Rome. It was very, very important. That's how important the Senate was. The Senate and the people of Rome, right? That's how important it was. Not even the proconsuls and the people of Rome, the Senate and the people of Rome. It had great power. The US Senate, yeah, it has. He's something that I got that's I think very important. The senators in the US, they don't represent the people that elected them. They represent the state where those people live. They represent the state, not the people, right? And the members of Congress, they represent now the people, the interests of the people, right? And that brings in sort of like a division of power, because one would be focusing on the state. And that's why senators, before you elect them, you really have to check their foreign policy, because now their foreign policy will determine if that state will benefit or not, right? And when it comes to the House of Representatives, you have to check small things like the taxes on cigarettes and all that stuff. Just localize matters, you get. And that's why the Senate in the US has sort of like, it's more powerful than the House of Congress, although the division of power is very strong. And that's why when it comes to appointing Supreme Court judges, the Senate matters, the House of Congress does not, you get. So anyway, again, I'd urge the Punguza team to look at the functions as the one that elevates the powers, not just elevation for the sake of elevation, right? Okay, again, the senators in the US, they go for 6 years. The House of Representatives go for 2 years. We have to create a possibility for disloyalty to the president, right? There has to be a possibility for disloyalty to the president. Right now, if you're disloyal to the president, you guys will go and vote at the same time. You still need his money. You still need his power, right? The US went to the midterm elections just the other day, right? The members of Congress, they did not have Trump's backing, right? He's the president, but they did not have his backing because he couldn't go around all those Congress seats. If we are able to separate the term limits for the president, the senators, and the MPs, then this country will change. Because now the senators will not be dependent on the presidency and his money. The members of parliament will not depend on the president and his money. Will just change the entire system. Again, House of Representatives in the US, they have 2-year terms. The senators, they have 6-year terms, and the president has 4-year. It's a 4-year term. So we need to check that. We need to think about that one. So here's another thing. I'll just go to the other good things. Stop the wastage of public funds. Like limit the salary of the president. That's okay. No problem with that. Commissioners to compromise are not more than 5 part-time members. That's okay. Less money used there. Abolish the position of deputy governor. It's very dangerous that a governor when a governor dies, the deputy governor takes on for the duration of the term. It's not the president. It's not the presidency. We don't need. The counties do not need that kind of stability that we can afford to the nation, right? Because the president takes over so that we can have stability for the remainder of the term, right? The counties can deal with another election, right? And then we might promote this idea, if a governor becomes too much, then just, kill the guy and then continue eating your money, right? So I think there has to be an election so that those people can be represented, right? And I think that's a very good idea. Now, what he wants is that the last clauses, utopian, what I call the utopian clauses in that Punguza Mizigo initiative, to introduce a 1 7-year term for the presidency. 1 7-year term. So the president cannot serve 2 terms. Let's say like in this case 14 years, right? But in 7 years, a lot can happen. Right now, there are people who are telling Uhuru not to give up power, right? Just to continue and change, become like Museveni, change the constitution, keep going. If we give a person a lot of time to be president, right, then those tendencies will rise. Like if we gave Uhuru 2 more years, then those ideas would continue festering and eventually they'd become reality. So the idea again, for countries like, for empires like Rome, or let's go when Rome was a republic, and for us, for the US that's here, we need to take examples from them. Limit those powers as much as possible. Make sure that they cannot collude together. That these guys have different terms. They cannot collude together to disenfranchise the people. Let's just think it on those terms. And then when you have one person holding power over a long period of time, reduce those. If let's go for 4 years, and then 4 years we see if we can change him. Let's not increase the 5 years. Let's reduce it, right? So anyway, I'm about finished. Then impose a life sentence for culprits convicted of corruption and cases to be tried within 30 days, and then amend the constitution. Okay, these others, they just deal with corruption. Sadly, they deal with corruption in a utopian kind of way, because corruption and theft cases to be tried within 30 days, I don't think it will work. Again, even suspects have rights, so they need enough time to defend themselves, right? What we need to do is to deal with corrupt judges, right? The duration of time does not really matter, right? And then when it comes to, like that one should do. And then impose a life sentence for culprits convicted of corruption. Again, even suspects have rights, right? So let's not do it blanket wise like China, where we move so hard on corruption in particular cases, but then corruption continues around the country. We kill this person because of corruption, but the country is entirely corrupt. Let's do it in a different way, such that we perfect the system. We remove the corrupt judges, and then I think things will work out from there. Let's not focus on these petty issues, punitive issues. Jennifer, thank you so much. And people should know, Jennifer is in the United States, and people should know that shorter terms really do work. They are better, because I wanted to do something on Magna Carta. I'll do that, but the idea is very important. You need to limit the powers of those people. You can limit them by time. You can limit them by a lot of ways. Just to finish up, I think it's a good initiative. I don't think it goes far enough, but it's okay. We can start with this one, right? And then we move on. We can address the other utopian kind of things, like the 1-year term presidency, and then these other corruption cases. Just find a way of dealing with judges. Sentences don't matter if the judges are corrupt. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you for watching, and have a good evening. I'll see you on Monday.